Hi, everybody. This is Bob Ost, and welcome to the Friday True Community Gathering. I think it's the 93rd or 94th that we've done consecutively since April 17th, 2020. I I can't believe that I live in Zoom now. Back in 2020, at the beginning of the year, I absolutely dreaded the idea of having to go virtual and do anything virtual. What do I know about virtual? I'm not a tech person. But we did it. We made the pivot. I found out that it's something that's useful and not so bad. Yeah, I didn't think I was ever going to be doing Zoom, but I've discovered that it's not that different. I thought that I couldn't recreate the experience that I found that I thought was the quintessential true experience. My experience from basically talking to other people who've been through our programs, and when we did our panels, there was an immediacy and an intimacy and a warmth that people said they felt coming to our live panels, and I didn't think I could recreate that on Zoom, but it turns out that we managed to connect as human beings when we have to, even on something virtual and something technical like Zoom. So I've come to really embrace Zoom, and I'm very happy to be here with you in Zoom now and in virtual now, and I'm going to continue it for a while. We're not going to go live. We are looking for a space so that we can do our monthly panels, um, and we're going to do those panels live, but with a live streaming component as well. So that's what we're looking forward to right now. We're going to continue doing our community gatherings on Friday on Zoom now. So we've talked about a lot of different things, and we've talked about various things in terms of how to be creative and how to stay sane during COVID, yada, yada, yada. You all know it. You've heard me say this every week. The conversations are getting a little broader now. We're able to actually think outside the Zoom box and think about what's going on outside in the world in general. I'm looking every week for interesting guests to come to talk about subjects that I think are going to be of interest and use. Interest and use. Use is a very important thing to me, for all of you in the community who come here to be with us each week. And I couldn't help but notice there are a couple of you who are into musicals. So thus, I felt very strongly that it made sense to jump in 2 weeks in a row and actually talk about musicals and development of musicals, and also, which is what we did last week. And this week, we're going to talk about some of the production opportunities. We have two guests with us who I'm going to bring in right now. Now that the outside noise has stopped for me. And I want you to meet Tim Jerome and John Sparks, both of whom are old friends of mine. Although, John, I have to tell you, Tim and I know each other a lot longer than I know you. We go back to, I don't know, Victorian era, wasn't it?
Yes, I think Victorian era. That's
Yeah.
right.
Well,
Uh,
I don't know. I don't know why that should be true, Bob, because I think I'm older than both of you. But if that's the way it is, that's the way it is. So if I'm
I
your
did
new,
well. I didn't know you then. That's the point. I knew I was actually working for Tim Jerome at one point. At the, I want to actually have you both talk about your background with musical theater, your history of musical theater. Don't go into too much detail because it would take more than an hour. Because both of you who have done so incredibly much in terms of the development of new voices for theater. But Tim, why don't you give us a little bit about your background first?
My background. Okay, that's it. How about that? No, I'm kidding.
No,
Um,
no.
all right. I've been an actor in the New York theater scene since the mid '60s. I've done a number of Broadway shows, off-Broadway shows, regional shows, tours. That's my primary activity and my profession. I'm a professional actor in the musical theater, although I've done a fair number of straight plays of non-musicals.
Yeah, but Tim, I'm thinking more in terms of Baker's Dutch and National Alliance. Well, you've been part of the musical theater development scene
I was
for.
just about to get into that.
Okay.
In about 40 years ago, in 1984, I was 38 years old then, or so no, 40 years old or so. And I had been doing a lot of theater. And I was bothered by a problem. And the problem that I saw was that there were a lot of people writing good musicals, and a lot of those musicals were not getting produced. They were just sitting and they weren't getting picked up, and there was no movement on them at all. And it was very frustrating. It was frustrating. I figured it out because I was doing a lot of readings. I was doing readings and showcases and workshops and so on, stuff like that. And those move, and even in the best of those shows, they weren't moving. And I put my mind to it. I have an engineering background in college. My dad was an engineer. So engineering is essentially problem solving. And I had to figure out what the problem was. And what the problem, as I began to understand it, was, and still is that New York is the center of the musical theater, and that everybody wants their musicals done in New York. And there just simply isn't enough space in New York. There aren't enough producers in New York. The regional theaters, the regional communities don't have as many shows, new shows being produced there. And I think it occurred to me, well, maybe there could be some way of getting some of these really good shows and shipping them out to the regions and getting those regional producers interested in producing new work. So I set about to create some sort of a plan, some sort of a process. And the process that I came up with, I incorporated under the name National Music Theater Network, NMTN. And NMTN did two things. We did what was called evaluation, and the second was promotion or development, promotion for development. So a show would be people who wrote the musicals would submit their musicals to National Music Theater Network. And here was the big secret plan that I came up with and eventually and established. I recruited professional directors, and the professional directors that I recruited, this was before we actually launched National Music Theater Network. We wrote up an evaluation report form. This is the treasure and I'll hold it up here. This is what, no, that's not working, is it?
Well, you're on the blurred background right now.
Yeah, I know. How do I get off the blurred? I don't know how we get off the blurred, but anyway, it doesn't exist like this anyway. It's not on paper, it's in the computer. This evaluation report form identifies, for anyone who would be reading a show, identifies the areas in which comments might be made. Comments about the book, comments about the lyrics, comments about the music, comments about the way the characters are developed, comments about the general interest values and comedy and things like that. These questions are specifically asked because these are the questions that the directors came up with that ought to be asked.
Well,
so we created
Tim, I'm going to push you along a little bit because I want to get to today. So
all right, I'm moving quick. I'll move quicker.
Okay.
So if a creator submits their musical, two directors will read the material and fill out evaluation report forms, which are returned to the creative teams. If either or both of the directors indicate that they recommend the musical for development, it moves into what we now call the library of recommended works. There used to be a catalog of recommended works, which before digital, we would print up on an annual basis and of all the musicals that had been recommended. The catalog.
I'm curious. Am I still in the catalog? Because that's how I originally met you.
You must be. I submitted. Think you must be. Which was what was the name of the show?
Finale. Yeah. And basically, I submitted it to you, and through you, it also wound up with the National Alliance of Musical Theaters, and they did my show the second year, and I was with them first, and you found me through them. That's how it happened, as I recall.
Okay. Well, I mean, if we have digital material, it goes into the library. because now the library is a digital thing. If we don't have digital material, because starting in '84 and up until the early 2000s, people were submitting their musicals on paper and cassette tape. Those we don't have digital material for are in what is called the annex, and they're just listed. We don't have the materials for them anymore. But I am recruiting people, and if you know anybody, please send them to me, who can call up these creative teams and say, do you have a digital material for your show? If you do,
I do.
We can take the show and, okay, well, Bob, we should be talking.
Okay.
I can move it from the annex into the library proper.
Okay.
In the library, the list of shows goes, we have about over 100 shows listed in the library. If you click on the title, it goes to a show page. And what we give away is the synopsis, the script, and the audio demos. There's a
so
play.
Basically you're saying that this still exists. This is still part of.
Yes, if you go to mainstreetmusicals.org, the menu has a library.
Now I get the connection. So in other words, Tim, what happened was all of the material that you've been collecting when you were NMTN,
NMTN, I know.
NMTN, all these anagrams, all that stuff moved into mainstream musicals.
That's right.
So mainstream is an evolution of the company that I know you from originally.
Right. And if you give me 1 second, I'll tell you exactly what happened. And that was that NMTN created the New York Musical Theater Festival in 2004. In 2008, I was forced to resign from NMTN because they were the board was only really interested in the New York Musical Theater Festival. They didn't want to go regional. And I thought that was the reason I started the company, was to get these shows into the regions. And so I resigned from the company, and I started 2 years later, I started Main Street Musicals. Main Street Musicals has the original programs, the evaluation program, and the development with the library. And discovered a couple of years later that the New York Musical Theater Festival had gone bankrupt. So,
right.
There you go.
So you see, these are things I didn't know. I never made the connection between
NMTN
and Main Street and Main Street. Oh, I knew that. I know
Main Street.
Absolutely. I definitely knew your connection with NYMF.
Yeah.
I mean, I was there at an early conversation with Chris Stewart. So
yes, Chris Stewart was the guy who came up with the idea, and he was working for me. And I said, "Go ahead, do it." And it seemed to be very successful. I was very happy with it, except that it didn't really have an impact on the regions.
Well, that's an interesting part of the conversation that I just want to insert, is that NYMF was a developmental opportunity that was, in theory, a great opportunity for all of us musical writers. The problem was that it became commercialized in many ways, and people became competitive commercially, and it became ridiculously expensive. It was ridiculously expensive to run. It was ridiculously expensive to be part of. So that, I think, is what may have contributed to its demise.
I would prefer, in the little bit of time remaining to me, to just kind of bring you up to the present.
You have a lot more time.
Component that I want to mention. If you want to talk about NYMF, I'd be very.
No,
happy.
I don't. I want to stay on topic today. So basically, John, give us a little bit of your history. You've run many different companies that have helped develop new musicals. You're very active in helpful with True, as a matter of fact, in our musicals reading series as well.
Well, I'm happy to give you some background. I thought Tim had one more thing he wanted to say. I didn't want to interrupt his.
Well, I mean, it's up to you. It's up to you, Bob. You want to?
I try to balance the conversation so that everybody gets to talk. I'll come back to you, then I'll go to John. I'll come back to you, then I'll come back to John. So John.
All right, I'll start.
Okay.
I'll make this as quick as I can. My interest in musicals goes back to a day in Boston when I was 15 years old, and I went to see first legit show I had ever attended was Goldilocks, with music by Leroy Anderson, a book by Walter and Jean Kerr, and
you have to mention Elaine Stritch. You can't.
It had Elaine Stritch
Okay.
and Donna Michi and Margaret Hamilton I thought I died and went to heaven. I went home and started writing musicals that afternoon. I didn't know what the hell I was doing, but that's what I wanted to do. And I've never wanted to do anything else. A few years later, in 1968, when I moved to Los Angeles after I graduated from college, because it was as far away from my mother as I could get and still be on the same continent, I joined the BMI workshop and learned a lot from Lehman Engel before his illness caused BMI to withdraw funding for all but the New York version of that workshop. And that's when Marty Hansen and I got together and formed the LA version of the BMI workshop in 1979. And it has morphed into New Musicals Inc. I've been kicked upstairs. I'm now known as the founding director, and I don't have hands-on anymore with those writers, but for the better part of 40 years I did. I also, and the reason behind this, the reason I was working with other writers is because the BMI workshop taught me so much. And when we didn't have Lehman anymore, we felt, well, we have the collective knowledge he gave us, we should pass this on. So that's why we did it, so that other writers would have some support. Because believe me, if you're a writer of musical theater and you're working in the dark, it helps to have somebody can point out the points of craft that can save you time when you need to know how communication works in the musical theater, both for music and lyrics and dialogue, in a different way from the way those same things work in other areas. At any rate, one of the shows I had written, I was fortunate enough to have it picked up by a theater in Chicago where it was produced and ran for several months, and they were interested in getting a workshop started there. So in 1984, I started a similar workshop in Chicago and commuted from LA to Chicago monthly in order to keep both those workshops going. Ultimately, I became the artistic director at the theater in Chicago, but still on a part-time basis because I had the interest in LA. So I was a bi-urban guy for the better part of 30 years. And the thing that the theater in Chicago had was 3 black box theaters, 150 seats each, they were dark Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday nights, which meant, wow, insofar as theater is real estate, you can do readings, you can do rehearsals, you can do workshops, you can do things because you have a space and you can bring an audience into that space. So for all those years, I was able to see to it that a lot of writers saw their work in front of an audience, whether it was in a reading or a workshop or even a developmental production, including many writers from across the pond, because for 20 years I was on the board of Mercury Musicals Development in London, and I made annual trips there to give master classes and talk to the writers there. And I met many, many talented writers. To make that long story short, now that I've been kicked upstairs in the workshop and I'm not there with hands-on business anymore, I have developed a nonprofit of my own called Right for Art Productions. And I'm actively working with writers who are creating character-driven stories with contemporary resonance and doing it in a musical theater format. So I'm really, I've become a developmental producer, if you will. We have 4 projects going right now that we're very, very interested in. And I'm also working with the Shanghai Grand Theater and Damai Culture division of Alibaba to work. I'm working now with 5 teams of writers in China to develop full-length shows, 2 of which I'm hoping to produce in Chinese in the Los Angeles area, because there is a large Chinese-speaking audience there, later this year, because 2 of the shows are really taking off, and I'm very excited about it.
Well, I'm going to ask you more questions about that. I'm going to ask Tim some questions as well. But Tim, what was it you wanted to add before?
I just wanted to add that we recently came up with the idea of trying to popularize the library to students and professors in colleges around the country in the musical theater college team community. And I was just in at the University of Michigan, where we were doing a performance of Fiddler on the Roof. I played the Rabbi. And as a matter of fact, we're going to Philadelphia to do the same production with the group of students that were populating that production. I had the opportunity to really talk to these kids. They are so excited about the idea. What we want to do is develop the concept of table read. You pick a show from out of the from the library, you pass out the parts, you have to videotape the musical numbers, because you can't do musical numbers on Zoom, and then sit around the table in a virtual situation, invite the creators to come in and do a table read of the show. That would give these students an opportunity to communicate with the director, and rather with the writers, and find out and maybe offer ideas or offer their vision, or be seen by people who might then consider them talented enough to bring into a production later on down the road. This idea of table read, I think, is going to take off. The kids were so excited about it that I spoke to at the university, that I have no doubt that the professors will go for it, and that we will start having regional exposure for the plays that are, for the musicals that are now in the library.
So this speaks to something, the point that you made early on, which actually was the whole purpose of my doing today's conversation, which is you were talking about the fact that the development process was sort of stunted for most shows. I mean, you write the show, you might get a developmental reading of it somewhere, but nothing happens afterwards, and it happens over and over again. We've all, I'm sure everyone in this room has gone through the heartache of what next. Okay, we did the reading, what now? So I
and everyone associated with the reading that you did is waiting for it to go on, and then when it doesn't, everybody is disappointed.
So one of the points that you made that I think I want to just underline is that and somebody else also said it in the chat, not every show is destined for Broadway or New York. And so one of the reasons I jumped on the opportunity to have the two of you talk today is because both of you are very aware that there are opportunities for development and for a production beyond the New York Broadway area. Yeah. So I first of all, I want to acknowledge you both for doing that, because I spent a lot of time running through telling people, yeah, I know you want to go to Broadway, but have you thought about other possibilities? I mean, I say it a lot. And, you know, I noticed that over the years, fewer and fewer people are basically submitting to us and saying, I see this on Broadway. More and more people are aware of the fact that there are other steps. It doesn't mean that you're never going to go to Broadway. It just doesn't mean that you're going to jump there from a table read to Broadway. So again, I want to just acknowledge you both for being part of a movement to help writers understand that there are not that there are other paths, but there simply are paths that you can take. That it's not necessarily a straight line to the Schubert Theater. So Tim, let's go back to Main Street Musicals. You basically, MNTN. I can't get it in my head. I'm so sorry. And I worked with you on it. I was part of that. I did some of your marketing. MNTN. I don't know. So basically, MNTN, Main Street Musicals, is carrying on the spirit, essentially, of what you had created back then when I first knew you.
The exact programs, yes.
So, what do people need to know about Main Street Musicals?
About Main Street? Well, I want to put it right out there that right now Main Street is kind of dead in the water, and we're dead in the water because I don't have an administrator to run the evaluation program. And I don't want, and I mean, I can talk about table read, which I am doing to college professors and college students as much as I can. But it really, we're not going to go anywhere until I can get the evaluation program back and up and running. There's a new platform, it's all online, but somebody has to welcome the shows in, place the shows on the platform, and recruit directors to read the shows and fill out evaluation report forms, which are also digital and online.
I'm going to ask you a very sensitive question. Are you funded
Their money.
for this? Yes, their money.
No, I'm looking for a development director.
All right. I actually recommended a development director to another theater today, so I'll tell her to also reach out to you.
Good.
John, how about you? Where are you right now with NMI? NMI is multi-tiered. That's a lot of things.
Yes, NMI is ambitious and plans to produce first as a nonprofit, but they also have commercial production plans for their future. Which, you know, my hope is that they are going to succeed beyond their wildest imagination. Personally, though, the one thing I've learned over the years that I've been doing this is that getting new shows on in the smaller regional theaters is easier than in the major regional theaters because of the budgets. I mean, if you go to La Jolla or Fifth Avenue or places like that, it takes well over $1 million enhancement in order to get a new musical in their season, because they do productions that are fully staged Broadway style productions. And to do that with a new show, of course, it's very expensive. In the smaller regional theaters, however, there is more opportunity. The problem is a new title doesn't sell tickets the way a recognizable title does. And if the theater hasn't done its homework to educate its audience to the joys of new works, their audience, it's hard to find an audience beyond friends of the actors and the authors. I mean, this is just reality. And if you look at the programs like at the Village Theater in Issaquah or Theater Works in Mountain View near Palo Alto, you'll find that they spent a decade teaching their audience about the joys of new works. I knew about the joys of new works because I'm from Boston, and every show I saw was a new work. That's why I went to them. Nobody had heard the music before. It was like, I wanted to be the first ears to hear this music. But you know, in those days, I paid $9.50 to see Camelot. You know, if you want to see a musical of that stature today, I just paid $269 to see a revival of The Music Man. $269. It's like,
and those weren't the good seats.
Well, they weren't bad, but no, they were more expensive seats. But my point is that that's an investment now for a theater goer. So they want to know before they go that they're going to have a good time, and I don't blame them. And so even at a theater where the top ticket is $30, the audience is reluctant to go to something they haven't heard of.
So we're diverging into different areas right now. And I don't want to. I'm going to continue this conversation, but I just wanted to say that the first thing I wanted to do today was make it clear to everybody that there were opportunities for them to actually get produced. So we've established that I'm wrong.
Well, no,
no, I'm only kidding. But basically, so Tim, you're saying that you have a structure in place, although you need an administrator, you have a structure in place that would allow people's musicals to become visible to regional theaters, and you're also talking now about moving it into colleges.
Yes, that's right. And I would say that the college students themselves told me that many of the college students, their fellow college students, are writing new musicals now. It's a very popular thing to do in musical theater departments, and I thought, well, that's great. Here's where our new writers are going to be coming from for for the future. So the future is going to be okay as long as Putin is put down.
Oy.
But I think what I'm trying to say is that we have a structure, a function, and if we can popularize the way the library shows can be used, if we can popularize those using the uses of those materials, I think that we'll see a lot more regional production or regional development. It's all about development because, as Bob said, it costs a lot of money to do a show on Broadway, but you want to start somewhere. And where I think starting in the regions is a very economically reasonable approach to things. So, get your show into the library.
I want to address a couple things that came up in the chat. Somebody asks about how what your relationship is to New Play Exchange. There is none. So essentially, Main Street Musicals is another format for doing what New Play Exchange does for plays. New Play Exchange is set up so that plays are accessible to producers all over the country and readers, and not necessarily limited to regional theaters either. Tim, what you've done is you're creating an opportunity for. Okay, let's put it this way: how does somebody find the shows in your catalog? How do they find your catalog? Let's take it a step at a time.
It's as simple as going to a website.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to the home page of Main Street Musicals, that's mainstreetmusicals.org. Right there, it says library. You click on library and you're there. And all you have to do is scroll down because there's about 100 shows with their titles in red, listed one after the other. Check it out. If you click on any of the titles, you will see the materials that you would need to develop an interest. You can download the script. You can download I guess you can download the demos, but and the synopsis and background, the bios of the creative teams if they've included it.
Because a lot of people were here for the New Play Exchange meeting. I just want to clarify a couple things. First of all, what you're doing is related. It's like a third cousin to New Play Exchange, but the New Play Exchange does not vet the pieces. That anybody can download their plays to New Play Exchange. It can be one acts, it could be full lengths, it could be anyone and everyone. So they've got thousands and thousands and thousands of product on that website, which is great for by some standards. But yours for musicals, for people that are interested in musicals, if they go to your website, they know that they're going to be seeing a vetted list of musicals that your evaluators have deemed worthwhile.
That was the word that I was looking for, vetted. These shows have all been vetted. That's why we call them recommended works, because an actual professional director or more than one has recommended each of the works, each of the over 250 works that are listed in that area. Unfortunately, as I said, I don't have the materials for a lot of them because they were done, before we had digital. But I want to make clear that for those musical theater writers in the crowd here, that we do not give away the score. That if somebody's interested in the show from listening and reading the script, listening to the demos, they would have to get in touch with us because we do not allow the score out. Because we want the creators to know that where a work is going to be presented, the people who are interested would have to get in touch with the creators to get the score and then set up a situation where the creators could attend maybe the table read that is developed.
So how do people submit their work to you and for evaluation?
Same, the information all about about submitting the work is on the page, the home page of the Main Street Musicals website.
I know. I became aware of it a couple years ago because you were actually somebody was saying that you were looking for shows, and so I submitted to you. It wasn't a difficult process. I do remember that, and I was very pleased that you liked my work,
It
or
may have changed
your readers
from
liked it.
it may have changed from when you. I don't know whether you put it into the. I don't know whether people are aware of.
I got critiques. I got
You did.
evaluations. Yes, I got
Okay.
evaluations.
But what I'm saying is that we now have a platform that's a digital platform that is provided by an organization called Accepted. People know Accepted, especially if they are involved with colleges, because that's where kids do their auditions, the dance auditions, their singing auditions, and the colleges subscribe to Accepted, and they see all these auditions, and they recruit their freshman class. They've provided us with an evaluation platform. I need to, just to be perfectly frank with you guys, I need to make sure that that platform really works well before I open up the evaluation program again. So that's another thing that has to be done. So we're about, at best case scenario, if I have my people, I'm about 2 weeks or to a month away from opening up the submission.
Well, that's good news for everybody. The show that I submitted to Main Street is different from the one that you had back then, where you need it's not Finale, it's Angel in My Heart. Angel in My Heart was
I know it. I know the title.
Yeah. So John, tell us about all the things that NMI do in general, and then specifically for the writers in this room, what they could do to benefit from what you offer.
Well, NMI has an annual search for musicals, and for a very small fee, they will read your musical and give you a brief critique. But they select a couple of shows for further development, either in a concert reading, or a couple of them, I think they do table readings, which they screen so that if the authors are not local, they can still watch the process and hear the critique from the team that's putting it together. They hear from the director, the music director, the actors, etc. And they also have, if you go on the website, www.nmi.org, they have a long list of services for a fee. You can get an in-depth evaluation. You can get a reading. You can purchase a table reading. You can purchase a concert reading of your show, depending on how many actors, etc. They have a various scale. So they will, when you purchase your reading, they just do what you ask them to do. But when they find your show that they want to develop, then the reading costs are on them, not on the authors. So you'd have to check out the website to see all the different services. I would recommend that everybody go there and just look at the resource file, because they do keep a list of submission opportunities for contests and festivals, etc. And they also keep a list of public domain titles, and they keep it up to date as titles going into the public domain, which sometimes is very useful to writers who are looking for a project that has at least some recognition factor to it.
I want to name the baby for a second, because I know that this is an issue for people. Submission fees. My fellow writers, yes, a lot of us charge submission fees, and it's up to you to evaluate the program that is being offered, whether you think it's worth a $25 or $30 or $15 fee for what is offered. I've been I've been flamed on the internet for charging a fee. We charge a fee at True for a very simple reason. We want everybody to be members of True, and if you're a member of True, then you don't have any fee. So we basically, I don't care about the fee. I don't charge the fee because I want to be mean or I want your money. I charge the fee so that I can offer my members something special. Other people charge fees. Evaluate the company, evaluate what they're offering, and see if it's worth the fee to you. Please don't just hate everybody that because the Dramatist Guild says I should never pay for anything. Use your grown-up head.
I feel the same way you do, Bob. And for many, many years, the festival that I ran in Chicago annually for about 15 years, there was no fee for submission. And I was able to get artistic directors through NAMT from various theaters who had a track record of developing new musicals. And I got them to be the readers for that festival. So that meant that when you submitted to that festival, your show got read by, if you got to the finals, it had been read by 6 different artistic directors at different theaters, all of whom had an interest in developing new musicals. So that was in itself very useful to the writers. And I still do that today when I'm trying to find production opportunities. I know the theaters that have developmental programs, and I contact them and say, hey, read this synopsis and listen to a couple of songs and tell me if you have any interest in reading this show. And it is very useful to the authors just to get that exposure. And I think one of the things that's difficult for authors who are not known in the field to get an artistic director to even read, because you go to the bottom of the pile as soon as your script comes in. It's at the bottom of the pile, and the first person to read it isn't going to be the artistic director. It's going to be some reader, some intern, who may or may not like it. And so I try very hard to be selective. I mean, my advice to writers is, boy, do your homework and find out who's producing what their mission is, what their audience is like. Don't submit just anything to just any theater because they produced a musical last year. Make sure you know that what you're sending them is something they might have an interest in. And then try to get somebody like me to make a recommendation for you, because that is helpful. Or use Tim's program, for instance, where they have some confidence. They know that professionals have looked at this material and found it worthy of your attention. That's really important for people.
I just wanted to say that for anybody who doesn't know, our reading process is we have every play that comes to us and every musical that comes to us gets read by 3 people. I don't ever. I'm always surprised if people agree on anything in life. So I don't really think that 1 or 2 reads really tells us anything other than this person liked it and this person didn't. But we believe that 3 reads gives us a fair idea of whether something is worth pursuing. And the readers are generally we have producers, we have dramaturgs, directors, they're all theater professionals who are reading. We don't have, occasionally we'll have an intern that reads, but not usually. So that's our process, and we haven't opened up for musical readings because of what Tim said earlier, which is basically we haven't figured out how to effectively do readings on Zoom. Now that we're heading back into live theater, there's a lot of people pulling for me to come back with our live musicals reading series, which we might do. I don't know. Watch this page. So let's see if we have any questions from the chat. Does anybody have here's a question. John Sparks, in your Los Angeles productions, which theater will you be using to reach your Chinese American audiences? So, let's go back to that. Let's go back to that program and tell us a little bit about what you're doing there and what shows might be of interest, or
The,
you might be interested in somebody's work for any reason?
the theater that I'm hoping to use for presentations of concert readings of the Chinese musicals is a small theater in, oh, good Lord, don't get old, people.
Yeah.
I'll think of the name as I'm talking to you. This happens to me all the time. It's just a little past Pasadena and before Arcadia. It's between Pasadena and Arcadia. And but
I'm there. I'm there already. Okay.
they have an audience for these Chinese shows because they recently very successfully produced the Joy Luck Club, the play, and the audience was very enthusiastic from Arcadia. These are Chinese people, many of them Chinese speakers, and I wish, gosh, I wish I could say the name of that community.
Well, I have a question for you. Is this reciprocal? I mean, is China open to works from America to be taken over there?
The people I'm working with, no, there are producers in China that are producing American musicals all the time. They're very popular there, but they're not interested in new American musicals. They're interested in developing new Chinese musicals for Chinese audiences. And I think one of the reasons that we want to do these readings in, God, I can't come up with the name of that playhouse.
Come on, Tim, help him.
One of the reasons we want to do that is because there's not only a Chinese audience there, there is potential backer money there in that audience. And so they're looking for the material, and they're looking for the resources to produce the material. There's a long history, well, not long, but there are decades of interest in musical theater in China, and they are tired of importing shows. They want to develop their own, but the new shows that have worked in China have not had long runs. They will spend millions for a show that's only going to have a couple of weekends of performances, and then that's the end of it.
Well, Tim has talked about the opportunities that he offers to get shows from any of us here in the room out to regional theaters and to colleges. Is there any part of NMI that actually helps raise awareness of new shows?
Well, NMI traditionally has done it through NAMPT, and but NMI also networks very heavily with smaller regional theaters all over. So yes, their Scott Guy, who's the executive director, has contacted a number of producers that are vitally interested in developing small cast musicals that they can tour successfully. And what he has done is put together a list of possible topics, and the producers that say, yeah, we could sell that. Yeah, we could sell that. Yeah, we could.
So I got the bell going, ding, 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 ding. So yeah. Can you put me in touch with that person so that I can have them come here and talk to us, like in the future?
Oh, sure. That's you asked me earlier for Elise's email, and Scott Guy is the executive at NMI, and he's the same email, scott@nmi.org.
Oh, okay.
And, so there is, so what they do when they find a list of producers that are interested in a given project, then they look for the writers that they know and say, hey, this would be a good project for Sam. This would be a good project for Sally. And they assign people to write a pitch. And then they talk to the producers and say, what do you think of this pitch? And if they say, no, we don't like that music, we want it more contemporary. And they go to another composer and say, do you want to write a pitch? And basically they're dealing with public domain material, or sometimes with original ideas. And they're being very active about developing relationships with producers, because they want get some of their members, but they're also interested in any writer that can help them develop one of these shows with one of these producers that does a successful tour and bring somebody some money, because they realize that once that happens, it will happen again. And once it happens 2 or 3 times, it'll be much easier to have it happen a half a dozen times.
So I've got a question from the room for Tim. It's kind of a hypothetical, I think. Since you're in a situation right now where you need more help with your organization to begin with, he wants to know whether, beyond doing table reads with colleges and universities, have you ever thought about the possibility of moving things into productions with colleges and universities?
Let me make clear that it was never our aspiration as a company, or certainly as the founder of the company, to become a producer. We don't produce the table reads. The colleges produce the table reads, and we will never do productions. I mean, it's just not right. It wouldn't be right. What I'm doing is I'm making these resources available to producers and to colleges and to students and to whomever is curious. But as far as us going any further with those materials, it's not going to happen. Not under my watch.
Okay, and John, RK Green is suggesting Alhambra or Altadena.
No, it's not Alhambra. It's not Altadena. Oh, this is driving me crazy. Oh, yeah. Oh God. Sierra Madre. Sierra Madre. The Sierra Madre Playhouse. Excuse me.
Okay.
Somebody finally put it up there. It was Larry Daggett. Thank you, Larry. Yes, it's the Sierra Madre Playhouse. It's basically a community theater, but in recent years, they've had a wonderful artistic director and a really high quality production program. I produced for them, or co-produced, a couple of musicals. One was their summer show, and one was their Christmas show. And I have a really good relationship with the board and with the executive. I think they're now looking for an artistic director. And I know that since COVID, they've had, all kinds of problems, because they can't have an audience, or they weren't able to have an audience in the theater, so there was no income. They're in an upheaval, so they have dark nights. And when I suggested, gee, I've got these Chinese plays that I want to do, it looks very possible that I will be able to use their space. And going back to the experience I had in Chicago, theater is real estate. If you have a place to perform, that's really all you need. It's Peter Brook, 4 walls. That's what you need, is a space, and you can do your show. Without real estate, however, the cost is going up fast.
I have another comment from Ed Levy that I'd like to address. Am I correct in saying that if you are selected to present at NAMT, you pay the cost of the production? First of all, I don't know who the you refers to. Does it mean? Do you mean the writer? Do you mean the producer? NAMT basically has shows that come in that are sponsored by different regional theaters, and the regional theater is responsible for paying the costs. The writer is not responsible for paying for the costs in NAMT. Although the year that I was in NAMT, to be honest, the theater didn't have as much money as I needed, and I had to add some money to that in order to pay everybody that was involved in so my own fault for having a big cast. So there you go. And so basically we're at 6:30 now. So if anybody would like to raise their hand virtually and ask a question, I've sort of gone through the chat to see what I could find, and I may have missed some things. So please feel free to ask questions, and feel free to raise your hand virtually if possible, or just unmute yourself and talk and say to us what it is you want to know. Come on, guys, this is a conversation. That means you talk too. Barbara Bellman, did you have something that you wanted to ask?
Well, first of all, I wanted to thank our speakers tonight for sharing what is it's a challenging job, and probably often a thankless job. And I want to thank you guys for participating tonight and for doing what you're doing. I've taken a lot of notes on this, and I've got a lot of follow-up that I want to do. I wondered if our speakers would be willing to share their email addresses.
Well, I certainly am. I just, Barbara, I just sent it to you, but I'll put it to
okay.
everyone.
Great.
Just a second, when I find the everyone, to everyone. There it is.
The next raised hand I see is Linda and David. At one hand that they're sharing, the two of them are sharing.
Mine just went out as well to everyone.
I want to just throw something else out here, if you don't mind. Here in Philadelphia, there has been a lot of shakeup, obviously, not just what's happening in theater in general, but with COVID hitting, one of the theaters that we had that did, new musicals was 11th Hour. They've just gone under. They've gone away. So that was really the only avenue here in Philadelphia for new musicals. Now, you probably have all heard of Playpen. Playpen is a new play development company that Paul Meshegian had started. And a couple of years ago, just at the beginning of the pandemic, he and his administrative team were just basically blasted out of the universe because they did not handle some situations.
Barbara,
I'll get to it.
I'll get to
it. Well, the point is that Playpen is now perhaps going to be picking up the slack for new musical development. And that is a conversation that a couple of people here are now having with Playpen. So that may be another option for both Main Street musicals and what you're doing, John. So I just want to throw that out there. There's a new coalition of energy that's going to try and pick up the slack.
Okay, I'm going to jump in front of you for a second, Linda and David, because Rashim asked something that's pretty significant, and we might as well bring it up. He wants to know if there's a search for diversity in musical theater among our organizations. I can say that there is a true. We are very, very dedicated to nurturing and bringing into our circle BIPOC artists and trying to develop and find. There's also an interesting corollary to that, Rashim, which you may or may not agree with. In order for us to have submissions from the BIPOC community that are properly acknowledged and understood, we need to have readers that will relate and understand those works, relate to and understand those. And we're also working on that. So we're working on it from both sides. I'm actually trying to bring more BIPOC leadership into True, so that when we get shows, I don't have people saying, I don't understand this, I don't get it, which can happen and has happened.
I would jump in, Bob, and say the same is true at NMI, and it's definitely true, and it's in our mission statement for Right for Art, that we are really actively looking for both leadership and writers from BIPOC professionals.
Yep, amen on that. So, Rashim, is there anything else that you want us to address about that?
No, I think that what you said makes sense, because obviously there are going to be cultural references and things that come from a particular cultural experience and in a musical in particular. So yeah, you would need readers from different communities, but in order to get readers from different communities, there would have to be leadership that knows how to reach out to those communities as well. So that's always the case. Yeah,
it's complicated. It's very complicated, and it's not just the cultural references. It's actually, if you have writers that have been raised outside of the commercial theater realm, they don't necessarily write in the voices that we're used to hearing in traditional theater. And so we have these raw voices, or maybe not raw, maybe they're sophisticated in a different way, but we have to have readers who can understand it, who can go, oh, I know what this is, or I don't know what this is, but this is interesting, which is probably even a better way of looking at it. So, okay, Linda and David, did you want to come in? Hello.
Oh, yes, absolutely. First, I want to say thank you very much to both speakers. It was wonderful hearing both of you, and definitely very interested in when you were talking about, I believe it was John Sparks, I hope I'm right, that was talking about dealing with the Chinese option, because we have the hip hop shows, and with our shows, we bring in people of color and people of different backgrounds, and our shows have that. But what we really love to do would maybe talk to somebody who's connected to China, because that's what we've been looking for, and have them be able to take our shows and turn it into, Chinese, because that's, you're right. It's a beautiful place to be able to have your shows to be seen.
Well, the people that I'm working with are interested in developing shows in China by Chinese writers, but I know there are producers in China.
Could somebody please turn off their, is that your phone, John?
No, it's not mine, no.
Okay, thank you.
Let's
Let's be conscious, everybody.
There are producers in China who are interested in shows from America, and if I can get a load on some, I will try to put you in touch with them. But the people that I know, that is not their mission right now.
Yes.
Eric Sirota, you have your hand up.
Yes, John, you had mentioned about pitching shows to producers, which seemed sort of very different than anything that I've sort of heard about, or maybe that we talk about here, where one is pitching an idea for a show that hasn't been written yet, rather than pitching a musical that actually exists. And,
Eric, we had an entire conversation about this last week with Aaron and Joe from Musical Theater Factory and from Musical Theater, New York Theater Barn. Both of them actually encourage pitching ideas to them. They don't necessarily look for finished scripts.
Right.
They aren't commercial producers, so that was that's a very different case. And then the other question I had was different: is what is the relationship between NMI and NAP? Or whatever the other acronym is.
None.
You would mention.
Well, no relationship. NMI is just a member of NAPT. It's just one of.
Oh, NAPT. Oh, I'm thinking of ANM. Did NMI change its name in the last decade?
Yes.
Oh, that was ANMP. Oh, that began with an A. Oh, okay, that's a different thing. Okay.
It's now it's the same organization, just with a new name.
Oh,
ANMP.
so that was I confused ANMP with NAPT. Okay.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
So, guys, I don't know what your time is like. I could let people continue to ask questions, or I could actually invite everybody to go in breakout rooms and meet people if you are able to stay for maybe 10 more minutes. If you can't, that's okay.
I can stay certainly for 10 or 15 minutes. I've got somebody coming. My phone is going to ring and tell me there's somebody down in the lobby waiting for me for dinner at 7 o'clock. So
okay.
Until then.
Okay. So basically, well, let me actually, Larry Daggett, did you want to ask a question before I open up breakout rooms?
Hi. Yes. Hey, good to see you both, Tim and John. John, I was a member of your class before it was NMI. That's when it was the Layman Angle Musical Theater Workshop. I looked at the website for NMI, and it's vast, and there's a lot of things there. For those of us who want to figure out how to get known there, what is the best way? What's the easiest way in to get to know? There's so many options there.
Write to me first and send me a very brief description of what you want to pitch, and we'll talk.
Will do. Thank you so much.
So I'm going to do the wrap up now, because we may have YouTube viewers, and I just want to thank everybody, John and Tim. I want to thank you, my friends, friends for many, many years. Happy to know you and happy to have you with us today. I want to thank all the community people here that joined us today. and I do this weekly reminder. Basically, we do offer this for free, for pay what you can. We do hope that sometimes what you can means something. So if you want to support us and support the work that we're doing, please go to TrueDonate, trudonate.com. That's the easiest URL I can give you, trudonate.com. And just give us a donation if you can. Or don't give us a donation and buy a ticket and come to our benefit on 3/20. That would be even better. 3/20, March 20th, Sunday night at 5 o'clock Eastern Time, is our True Speak Hear Our Voices benefit, which has some Broadway stars in it and some Broadway stars directing. And we're also honoring Kate Camerata of Create Theater. We're going to giving her our annual Entrepreneur Award for her work with Create Theater and her work helping and to develop so many of the artists that are even in this room right now. But she's helped a lot of people over the past couple of years. And we're also going to be remembering Van Dirk Fisher. Van Dirk Fisher, who ran the Riant Theater and the Strawberry Festival and the Jaconda Film Festival. He directed something for us last year and in our benefit, and did a brilliant job of it. And he was sick the timing that he did it, and I was aware of it. And I was hoping he was going to make it longer, but we lost him back in, I think, November or maybe a little bit earlier than that. And we want to remember him. So we're going to do a little bit about Van Dirk as well. So all the people that love Kate and all the people that love Van Dirk and all the people that love True, be with us on March 20th, please. And thank you. And also consider subscribing to our True channel so that we can eventually, when we reach 1,000 subscribers, I don't know if that'll ever happen, but we get perks. YouTube gives us perks. So be a subscriber. And that's it. Thank you, everyone.